Hello, everybody. I'm John Self. We're back live. We're offline during the noon hour today, so we were not able to bring you the lunch and learn. We will redo this on LinkedIn later today. This will be available if you're seeing this now on replay. It's up on YouTube. If you're joining us now here on YouTube Live, we're delighted to have you. Thank you so much. Today, we're going to talk about three common mistakes executive make when they change jobs. This is somewhat akin to a presentation I did a week or so ago, but I think it's really important because we're continuing to see these kinds of activities as the competition intensifies for as the competition intensifies for the jobs that are available. You're seeing a lot of things happen that candidates aren't really aware of, and so that's what we're going to talk about today: protecting your brand and being self-aware, being proactive to be sure that you're not being shot down by people in the background who want to see you not succeed. So, I think this is key, and we've talked about this before, but I want you to really pay attention and really think about this deeply. If you allow someone else to tell your story, you probably won't like the ending. Now, if you're a competent CEO or a competent senior executive in any industry, one of the things that you now must take accountability for, ownership for, is your brand. Why? Because your brand is going to be central to being discovered for new jobs in the future. Why is that? Because companies are automating more and more. You're going to see this really pick up over the next 2 to 3 years. And your LinkedIn profile will be as important, probably more important than your resume. So you have to be on top of your telling your story. If you're not telling it, then somebody else out there is going to fill the void, and it won't be pleasant. This came from Jean-Louis Carrivac, who was the American poet, novelist, and leader of the Beat Generation. And if you're trying to figure out the Beat Generation, that was Allen Ginsberg et al. So he was quite an interesting guy, and I think that he was spot on with that point of view. So, what are our agenda today is what are three common mistakes executives make when transitioning to another job? Why does this matter? What market forces are creating a risk for executives as they advance in their careers? And what steps can executives take to protect their brand and their reputation? This presentation will probably last about 30 to 40 minutes. So if you're for planning purposes, there you go. If you do good, people will still accuse you of selfish ulterior motives. So do good anyway. Mother Teresa said that, and I think it's a smart move. It is absolutely, you can't not do the good work that you're supposed to do, but you have to understand that there are a lot of people out there that don't like success, or they are jealous of you, or you've done something in the past that they took offense to, and so they will try to do what they can to undermine you. And it may be just during an early part of the transition. Some people get very, very fixated on this and go out of their way to try to do things that will hurt your career. Now, because there is so much competition for executive jobs, this is going to bring out the worst in people. And especially if you're going against an internal candidate, you must be aware that there are going to be people internally that want that individual to survive or succeed, and they'll do what they can to help disadvantage you. And so when you're doing that, if you don't have an up-to-date career brand, if you're not established on LinkedIn, if you're not being very, very visible, then whatever those people say, whatever they whisper about you, unless you have something to counteract it, that becomes the truth. And a lot of people have lost out. A lot of people say, they always take the internal person. Well, sometimes it's because it's a better fit, sometimes it's safe, but there's a lot of times when people internally, undermine the external candidate. Now, one of the three common mistakes that executives make is, number one, never crosses their mind that someone would want to hurt them. They take people and situations for granted. Happens all the time. Number two, they are not up to date. They fail to recognize the changing market dynamics, more competition, fewer jobs, and they are not proactive with brand management. And those are three mistakes you can no longer afford to make. It will hurt you in your job search. Now, a friend of mine, an acquaintance really, a former school board member in Tyler, where I live, said, John, it's not enough for some people to disagree with you. They will not be satisfied until they hurt you. They will not be satisfied until they hurt you. And so when you are a high profile executive, a CEO, or a chief operating officer, CFO, or someone else that's very visible in the company and the community. And let's say you have to make some decisions that people aren't happy with, or you bring in somebody from the outside when an internal candidate was the favorite of the employees. Some people are just wired so they want to get even. And so you can't sit back and say, well, I don't have to worry about that. I think you do. And I think now in this marketplace with all the competition, you can't afford that to happen. I mean, I hear about these things every week. People are doing very well in search. They're told by the recruiter, you're really the top candidate. There's an internal candidate, and then boom, ghosting. Why? Because the internal people did what they could to undermine you and help the internal candidate. And you can say, well, that's exception. No, it's not necessarily. I saw it probably 20 or 30 times in my search career. Now, that's not a majority of times, but it's enough that you need to be concerned. And now, with the jobs harder to come by, you absolutely have to be a fierce owner of your brand. That's going to be absolutely essential. So you can't just sit back and wait for something to happen. You have to be proactive. Mark Twain once said that a lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is still putting on its shoes. And it's so frustrating sometimes to see executives kind of poo-poo this idea, not really worry about it. They have a lot of confidence in themselves, and then they get waylaid. They get cut off. They get ghosted. They don't really understand what happened. You have to be a very aggressive defender of your brand. If something happens at Procter & Gamble and one of their brands takes a hit, let me tell you something. They're all over that like crazy because that's their equity. That's so important to them. They are a company recognized far and wide for their incredible brand management, and they take care of their brands. And as an individual executive, you're a brand and you have to take care of this. Now, this all matters because the dynamics in the marketplace are really changing pretty rapidly. There is something that we've talked about this called the white collar recession. That means there are more managers and executives looking for jobs than there are available jobs. Moreover, this is something that's been trending for quite some time and is accelerated through the pandemic and post-pandemic. This means that they're using executives to cover more areas of responsibility and not hiring new executives. They're saying we can do more with less. Automation and AI are also having impacts on those decisions. And as it relates to recruiting, it's dehumanizing recruiting. A lot of recruiting in the future, sourcing will be done automatically. How? By using high-speed scanners to go through LinkedIn profiles. So your LinkedIn profile has to be up to date. It has to speak to your value, your accomplishments, and it also needs to have some content that's relatively new. You can't just post stuff and let it go. If you're in the job market, you need to be posting 3 or 4 times a week. If you're just trying to maintain your brand, you need to be posting a couple of times a week. Okay, now relationships are going to be meaningful going forward, but technology will impact the initial decision-making process. So, if your brand does not really identify who you are and what your value is, that puts you in a profound disadvantage. And again, this is going to become increasingly important. Now, if something comes up about your background, oh, he's been fired from every job he's had for the last 3 years. And, and if you have posts that show how successful you were and that you were recruited from one place to go to another place and recruited to go to the next place, that kind of takes some of the edge off he was fired. We call that a whisper campaign. And unless somebody puts out the right information, that gets a life of its own. Again, we'll talk about this again in a minute, but this kind of whisper campaign, it's like a bully. Unless you stand up to them, unless you get the real story out there, they have power. Okay. So you want your brand to be very, very up to date. You want it to be very vibrant. You want it to be authentic, and you want it to be accurate. Now, there's really three kinds of gossip that we talk about. There's the innocent gossip. People just like to be in the know, and so they'll say things not because they really know or they want to achieve anything. They just want people to think, oh, he knows things. Then there's the power grab, in the know gossip. They want to know. They want people to think they know what's really happening. That gives them a sense of power. And as I said, gossip is like a bully. They continued because no one stops them. And if you want to cut that out, if you want to avoid having to explain to recruiters why these rumors are out there, that's on you. Why? Because you're not proactively managing your brand, and you have to do this. And if you wait until the fact that the people start hearing this, if somebody calls you and says, "Hey, people are saying this," it's probably already too late if you haven't been anticipating this. And people say, "Well, how do you anticipate?" Well, if you've had a tough turnaround, or if you had to make a lot of tough decisions, there's a good chance that there will be some talk out there. Now, whether it has traction, whether it has legs, as they say in politics, remains to be seen. You still want to cover that, because if you're trying to figure out a strategy on how to clean up a rumor and you're trailing it, you're in trouble. I mean, it's almost too late. Now, I hope you'll forgive me, but this is a little Texana, and this is a true story, and it's an infamous one about Lyndon Johnson's political opponent. Johnson told his campaign managers to start a whispering campaign that his campaign manager liked to have sex with pigs. And the campaign manager said, "Lyndon, you can't say that." Lyndon said, "Of course we can." And then he'll have to deny it. Okay. That's not where you want to be. You don't want to be on the denying side of something as unseemly as that kind of old time political trick in Texas politics, back when when politics in Texas was slightly more reformed than barroom brawling. You don't want to have to be in a position of trailing the rumor, saying, "Oh, no, that's not true," or trying to decide, how do I approach the recruiter? Get your brand out there on LinkedIn, get it established, keep it up to date, and let it reflect how you've been very successful from move to move to move. Now, in careers today, with all that's going on, the threat of inflation or stagflation, the possibility of additional layoffs, and they're occurring right now in healthcare, big time. You just have to be alert. You have to have your brand up to date. If you're competing with for a job, you need to really be sure that your brand is solid, that your transitions are all accounted for and documented, and that your value is very apparent. Now, the best policy is disabuse yourself of the belief that this cannot happen to you, okay? Because if you kind of believe that, it probably will happen to you. So don't put yourself in that bad position. Disabuse yourself of that notion. Intense competition for leadership jobs is going to ignite bad behavior from competitors and internal applicants. And some people have no compunction. They just don't care. They'll do whatever it takes to succeed. Don't let those people overwhelm your brand. Don't let those people overwhelm your good story, your good work. You want a proactive brand strategy, and you want to be using LinkedIn and YouTube. And people, lately, I've been saying this a lot, and people say, "Why YouTube?" You use YouTube because it is the second largest search engine in the world. Why wouldn't you want to have a page on YouTube? Why else do you want to consider YouTube? Because a lot of the recruiters are younger adults who came up with their telephones, mobile devices, watching short videos. Short videos can do a great deal for your establishing your brand. And so that's something that you need to consider. Matter of fact, I did an interview this morning with a terrific chief medical officer. We're going to be featuring him on Self Perspective, along with a neurosurgeon in Chicago and a premier debut interview, talking about quality of healthcare and what's wrong with healthcare in America. We have the highest cost and the lowest outcome, the worst outcomes of all the industrialized nations. So we're going to cut those down and then allow them to post some of those on their LinkedIn profile to cast a positive light. This person is up to date. This person is articulate. This person has a vision for the future. So these are things that I think that you want to consider. And YouTube is a great source to help you manage your brand. I think one of the biggest failings of leaders is that they cannot imagine someone who does not know them will engage in misinformation. Again, they just have a natural block. Unless somebody's saying it to their face, or unless it's occurring within their own organization, they're very distracted from it. They're very detached, and so they just can't believe it's true. And even though you tell them, "Hey, this is going on," oh no, no, that just can't possibly happen. And by the time you start to address it, it's already too late. The horse is out of the barn and in the next county. Uh, you know, I have seen executives try to poo-poo this idea, and they ended up their lives were turned sideways because they were clueless as to what was happening to them until late. The hardest part is to convince executives to be proactive to take action. Now, you're in a tough market. Why would you want to wait? Why would you not want to be proactive about protecting your brand? Because your brand is your identity. That's what's going to get you hired. You can have great response. You can have great accomplishments. You can, do some really creative, innovative things. But if people don't know about them, if the computer hasn't seen them, you're going to be invisible. You're going to be one of the best kept secrets around. So you have to be more visible. You have to post more often. And I think that it's an important lesson that you must learn. Why wouldn't you want to do posting? Why wouldn't you want to have a Facebook page? Excuse me, a YouTube page and a LinkedIn profile? When you are out there trying to protect your brand, build your brand so that people will see you and think that you are someone they need to have in their organization. First of all, there's two things that are going to happen. Number one, you're playing with house money. Okay. There's two things can happen. You either going to get the job or you're not going to get the job you didn't have anyway. But when you're trying to nip the whispers in the bud proactively, you're basically focusing on your brand, and that's going to automatically elevate your image and attract more interest. So let's go through that one more time. Even if you don't sense that anything's going on and people are talking about you out there, you still need to boost your brand. You need to post on a regular basis. As I said, you're playing with house money. There's nothing to lose if you're doing a good job with video and content that's appropriate and relevant. You can't really get hurt by that. And if there are things out there, even if you don't know them, your posting and your activity is probably going to nip it in the bud. Okay, because it's amazing. Recruiters will see something, and if it's on a neutral site like LinkedIn or some other sites, they will just probably discount it. Okay, so if you don't have information out there to protect your brand, a lot of times people will assume the worst and believe the worst. So you must elevate your image and attract more interest, and you do that by aggressively managing your brand. Once the damage is done, holy cow, it's so extremely difficult to unhear what has been heard. And the old thing about, gosh, that's too much information. I heard that a lot from my daughters. The other thing is, gosh, don't put that image in my mind, because once it's there, I can't get rid of it. Well, once you hear something bad about someone, it's really hard to unhear that. We all have a little bit of a tendency to believe what the negative, and it's just human nature. So if you think people are going to do the right thing, people won't hurt you, that they don't know me, why would they hurt me? You can't be that naive. You absolutely have to be more aggressive. I hope this information's been helpful. I apologize for our, a technical issue earlier today, and we're continuing to try to develop good content for you. If you have questions, you can set up a free call with me at johngself.com and go to the bottom of the page. We help people put together a YouTube page. We help people put together videos. We help people tell their story more effectively. We coach people on how to respond in interviews. And so we're happy to help you. We do value-based resume reviews, etc. So if we can help you, let us know. Now, unlike some companies, we can do all this stuff for you on an as-needed basis, and there's a fee for that. Or you can become a member, and you get built-in services for $79 a month, including 2 live group coaching sessions every week. And we'd love you to become a member. You also get 4 30-minute check-in calls with me every month. So you can actually go through a transition. If you've done this in the last 2 or 3 years, the information we're going to be providing you will be probably adequate to help you go through this transition. But if you need more assistance, like you want to take the master class on interviewing, because that is when people make a mistake, that's usually where it is. You get a 40% discount on that master class if you're a member. So visit us at johngself.com, click the button on the right side of the page, and we will be happy to talk to you about it. And you can see some of our course offerings there. So we hope that you'll consider becoming a member. I want to thank you guys for coming with us today. It has been an eventful day around here, and I will be doing this again later for LinkedIn. We had scheduled this at noon, and then all the technology and the connections all collapsed, and so it cancels out if don't start within 15 minutes. So we'll reschedule LinkedIn for a little while, and this will be available on your YouTube indefinitely. So thank you all very much for coming, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.